Welcome everybody to another Ragman show. This is elvinames, the Ragman on the Rags to Riches show. Today we are talking about the show's topic is Game of Clones. Facebook and Twitter fight to dethrone Clubhouse. So today we got some esteemed guests, Professor Arturo Osorio. Is that right? Right.
Yes, you got it right.
And Michael Teague. Right.
You got it right.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good to be here.
Right, with my usual co-host Timmy Besden and Chris. Right, Chris, say hey to people. Right, and guys, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself before we kick off the show. So, Professor Arturo, tell the people something about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, very much for being here. Hello, everyone. I am an associate professor on business entrepreneurship and economic development at Rutgers Business School. My areas of interest development is how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to position a business strategically in the environment. And I think that this is a fantastic opportunity to talk about tech startups, tech growing ventures, and unicorns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Mike, let the people know about you.
Good evening, everybody. Michael Teague. I am an internet entrepreneur. Ironically enough, Professor Osorio, nice to meet you. And operating in the digital space, and I was looking at an article, Wall Street is now calling the digital space the new tech space. So interesting times to do what we do. Good to be here today.
All right. And Timmy, say hey to the people.
Hi everyone, my name is Timmy Bezdan. I'm from Serbia. I'm working for Smartrealty as CTO, and we are working on application. You can check in the App Store, on the Google Play Store. Just type Smartrealty so you can use it for property search, and there will be some cool features soon. So check it out.
And Chris, who gave us that wonderful thumbnail game of clones today, go ahead and tell the people about yourself. All right. We don't have audio on Chris. All right. Check your audio, Chris.
Hello again.
There we go. All right.
Hi, I'm Chris Tarapatos from Cyprus, and I'm Chief Design Officer at Smart, and working on UI UX design for Smartapp, particularly.
All right. That's wonderful. And me, I'm the Ragman, and you guys should know, of course, former U.S. Marine, of course, founder of the Smartapp, and which you can find, like Timmy just said, and if we buy raggedy houses or developers, the house sellers 911, and of course 1-800-probate, and we buy inherited houses.com. So I want to jump into this topic, Game of Clones, because honestly, this bothers me. The fact that these guys, these founders, Timmy can pull their names up. But they built this app. It's taking off. It's going gangbusters, and and now these giants, Facebook and Twitter, are trying to jump in and steal their thunder. And I think this is some sort of abuse of power. Now, Professor, what are your thoughts on this situation?
There is a cynical view and there is a hard view. Cynical view is not illegal. This app is already integrated into Instagram, it's already integrated into Twitter, so it's already connected through the escape. Unless they have a patent on the format, there's nothing wrong with it. From the hard side, I understand that they are doing an effort and there will be some diversity in the landscapes to have different types of innovation and growth. So how much can we push on one side? How much we can push on the other? Do we need the capital, the money to make it grow fast and quick? Do we need the nimbleness, the agility of the entrepreneur to make it different?
And Mike, anything to add to that?
Elvin, I'm smiling because I have a professor of business development on the line, and serve respect to you. I want to learn from you today. So there are two sides. There are two sides of this, right? I mean, pure capitalism, free enterprise, the unequal allocation of the means of production, competition, pure capitalism, theoretical capitalism, right? So on the one hand, Facebook and Twitter, they have the right to compete. And social Darwinism or entrepreneurial Darwinism, only the strong survive. But on the other hand, just to do some brief preparing for the show, I looked up the Sherman Antitrust Act. So, rather than reading it, it talks about monopolies, etc. So will there be a point at which what Facebook is doing will be illegal? It depends upon if the other app takes them to court and what happens. But you can look at it one or two ways. Is it fair in the grand scheme of things? No. Does Facebook have a right to monopolize, to make money? Yes.
Now, here's the problem I have, right? I think that when these laws were created, well, obviously when these laws were created, we didn't have digital platforms. And I think that maybe it's time that, maybe Congress should look into this. I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, is this, because this is, even though it may not be a technical monopoly, it's very anti-competitive, and they're really abusing their power. Like, I think even in the thumbnail, we put, Facebook as the giant in the room, right? And we called, the head of Twitter, we called him basically the White Walker, or the White Stalker, right? Because basically they're taking these apps that these young people come up with that are very successful, and they're using their dominance, their millions of followers, and they're going ahead and cloning these companies. So how can new companies even have space to breathe if these companies are smothering them?
So Elvin, think about what the Somewhere brothers did in Germany, right? And they're two sides of the coin. One side says they're innovative entrepreneurs who cloned American companies. The other side of the coin is that they stole. You see what I'm saying? And I researched them a few years ago. Again, it goes back to, is it fair? Like, fair versus legal. Is it fair? And Professor, I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Like I said, I want to learn from you today. Yeah, it's fair, right? But is it legal? And just very quickly, the Sherman Act outlaws, quote, every contract, combination, or conspiracy in restraint of trade, and, quote, monopolization, attempted monopolization, or conspiracy or combination to monopolize.
All right. Well, what's that sound like to me? I mean, Professor?
So, and I'm going to add to that because I think that you have a point there, and I think that is very important. So if we look by the letter of the law, this is not a monopoly. A monopoly is based upon antitrust law. Even though they are on the same base, that is an online, they are two different instruments. It's almost like saying that if you have the TV, you are monopolizing the media because you have the radio. So it's not the same animal. However, when we think in terms of communication, we may be considering that they are controlling communication and they are guiding. So we have to be very careful. Similar discussions happened many years back, once upon a time, when we're talking about telephony, Bell, when we're talking about utilities, Edison versus Tesla. So how much of this can become a public good? How much of this is about exploitation? So are we going to go on the same conversation on talking about the power of Amazon? Are we going to go on the same conversation on talking about search engines? So are we talking about what we are looking at? One instance where one company that is already piggybacking on a platform developed by Facebook, and the right of Facebook or not to adopt, absorb, or replicate. Let's be cynical. Is there something that we can say? There is a copyright. Can we put a legal boundary of protection? If there is not, do we need to update the US laws? Do we need to update international laws? That is the question.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. I think that you might have to update the laws because the laws haven't caught up to this new economy. I mean, I remember last week it was Mike spoke about we're in the fourth type of industry here, if you want to talk about that, Mike. But you know, maybe they just haven't caught up, and a lot of, you know, these tech startups may get smothered in the cradle, because, you know, the government hasn't caught up to this new industry that we're in, this information agent, like Mike was speaking about last week.
Yeah, I think the digital economy, if my research is correct, this year is projected to earn $571.22 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the age of AI, it's the age of big data. So again, not being an attorney, conceptually speaking, maybe Clubhouse has to take Facebook to court. You see, and I mean, granted, Facebook probably has deeper pockets, obviously, but you know, at what point and how do you fight back? Because you can't fight back with the matter of size. You can't fight back at the level of control. You can't fight back at the level of revenue. So how do you fight back? Or do you give up? Or do you say, hey, why don't you buy me? Right? So that way, at least you cash out.
Yeah, and this is a good question. And I really like that perspective, because at the bottom of it, the question that we're asking is, what is fairness? Or is fairness legal? So in the US, there's a constitutional principle that is the foundation of the law, and has become the foundation of the business. That is, you can do whatever is not forbidden. So there's no law forbidding, prohibiting, making this position illegal, unless, so we need to create the unless, that they may require a new legislation. And this may as well need to consider, what do we need to be the unless? So Google had a copyright on the white screen on the landing page with the search box, that is everything white, the search box and the logo. And they have a copyright on that. And if you try to do something similar, you can be sued. Similarly, what is new, what is innovative from this other app that can be put through a legal envelope of protection that will give a day of court to these entrepreneurs? If there's nothing on it, so are we really defending the principle of innovation, or are we being just heartbroken by these spirits, these entrepreneurial spirits?
That's good. That's good. And Elvin, I think maybe what you're calling for is, I'm just coining a phrase, maybe, entrepreneurial activism. I mean, we know about social activism all over the world throughout human history. Is this a time, as you're suggesting, Elvin, to update the laws, right? And so what's going to be the driving force behind that? It could be entrepreneurial activism, to make sure that these startups, these innovative startups that could be disruptive, aren't smothered in the cradle by the monoliths.
So, go ahead.
Can we learn more about your idea of entrepreneurial activism? Because I know that there's a platform, and I know that there's a movement of entrepreneurial activism, and it has two phases. One is the launching of activities jump-started by entrepreneurs that they have as a purpose the public good, or are we talking about the entrepreneurial activism as a new set of rules and laws that will protect the economic interest of people who come with a new idea?
That's good. I like that, Professor. I think the latter, as opposed to the former. And again, Elvin, to take your point, you know, I'm a startup entrepreneur, right? So you're a startup entrepreneur in a sense. So I think we need to have a fair shake, that our innovation, our ability to build a team, to raise money, to compete in the marketplace comes from a level playing field.
Okay, that is a tricky question, because that conversation was already undertaken by the US Congress about 500 years ago, and it took place when they changed the patent law. Patent law used to be first in time, first in right. So you will see the movies when the entrepreneur will have this brilliant epiphany in the middle of the night. They will write it in an envelope, they will mail it to themselves, and by getting this postcard with the name, with the description of the invention and a timestamp, they could guarantee that being the first to come with the idea, they were the first with the right to exploit the idea. That's former history. The new law that has passed a couple of years back ago, I don't remember exactly when, says that is the first to register. So, so that is the question. So
yeah, under the Obama administration, again, from what I've read, he wanted to assist the small business person. So he advocated for, and I'm just using layperson's terms, first to file, right? So again, entrepreneurial activism from at that time a friendly administration saying, hey, let's give the small business person, the startup entrepreneur, a somewhat level playing field. And from what I've read over the years, you know, small business is the driver of economy in America.
Absolutely. And
it's the biggest employer in America.
99.9%.
Absolutely. And if you let the 0.1% dominate, what happens to all the rest? What happens to innovation? It actually affects the economy, you know. And you know, to that point, to those points you guys are raising, you know, personally, when we have a startup, Smart, right? And I'm always worried that when I have to go to these funders, and they're already invested in a lot of these big companies, and now you have to pitch your idea to these guys. You know, I heard people say, "Oh, the idea without implementation is nothing." No, sometimes the idea is everything. And you know, I worry that a lot of because like I had to present our concept to a few investors, and you know they don't get back to you, and you're presenting them all this information that it took you years and years to accumulate, and you know it's kind of scary. So now you have this, you know, I think that this company is still in beta mode, and let's feedback right now. Timmy, you got feedback? Yeah, that's Timmy. Yeah, Timmy, fix your mic. You're giving us feedback. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, just
If we're still getting feedback.
Yeah, whatever you did just now, you were fine before you went off. All right, let her fix that, and then I'll bring her back in. So, yeah, I mean, I'm always worried that these guys are going to run off with your idea, but now we're seeing it before our eyes. They're literally running off with these guys' idea, and they're bold-faced about it because, like you said, there's no law, there's nothing holding them accountable or saying, hey, you know, this is these guys' idea. And look, I get the point of competition, you know, is healthy. However, if you have over 1 billion followers and people don't really look at you as a business anymore, they look at you as almost a utility, right? Look what happened to Twitter. Twitter went ahead and they shut down the Twitter feed of the most powerful man in the world at the time, you know, the President of the United States, right? And Donald Trump. And look how that silenced him. Think of the power that this private company has. Right? I'm just going to try to bring back in Timmy. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, Timmy, you're back? All right. So, Timmy, what I want you to do now is read that story if you about that you were just bringing to our mind. If you could go ahead and read that off. Pull it up on the screen and read it off, Timmy. Can you hear me? Oh, she's gone again.
So,
there's
Timmy's back.
Yeah, okay. I'm back.
Yeah, Mike, while she queues up, pull up that story while Mike go ahead and speaks.
Yeah, just a brief comment. And Elvin, you know, I got to say, man, this is my second time being a guest. I'm connecting the dots, and I see what you're trying to do and say. I mean, we're startup entrepreneurs. Here's the irony, right? If we go Oracle, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Snapchat, TikTok, they were all startups at one point. Mm-hmm. So the same. They benefited from the law and the culture and the environment until they became large enough to then control it. That's the irony of this situation, right?
Exactly. Well, you know, yeah, Professor.
No, what I want to say, like, I think that we are having a very thin line to walk on. because if we're talking about the idea, so how do we know that my idea didn't come before yours, or my idea is really unique or different from yours, so I can benefit from it? So the question is, where do we draw the line, and who has the right to draw the line? Those are two different questions, and I think that they are the core of this conversation. So how do we get there?
So I mean, does anybody have an answer to that? Like, where do we draw the line, and who draws the line? Should it be Congress? Should it be, what should happen to protect these small startups that are trying to get oxygen, and these guys are sucking the wind? And I just want to say one more thing before you guys answer that. Timmy, read that story. Read this. Go ahead and read it.
All right, so Facebook is working on their own clubhouse clone already. Zuckerberg never sleeps. Facebook, the social media behemoth known for its ability to keep you connected to people you knew in high school and treat them for fabric of democracy simultaneously, is reportedly building its own version of Clubhouse, a new invite-only, audio-only social startup.
Now, you said Timmy, you said you had another story about how they were has been illegally buying up rival companies. Can you?
Yeah, it says Facebook has been illegally buying up rival companies in order to maintain the industry monopoly.
There it is. There it is.
Read the rest of that.
For nearly a decade, Facebook has used its dominance and monopoly power to crush smaller rivals and snuff out competitions, all at the experience of everyday users, said Attorney General later James of New York.
Letitia James, is that her? Spell that?
Yeah. General Letitia James of New York.
And this was a recent article.
Yeah, it was February 11th. Let me just double check. Yes, February 11th, 2021.
Yeah, just finish reading the end of that paragraph, and then we're going to jump into to talk about that, because that's powerful. Finish reading the rest of that if you don't mind.
All right. The Democrat leading the multi-state investigation into the company. As per the New York Times, the company's stock fell 2% to 277.70 a share after the lawsuit were announced.
Yeah, read the rest now, because Facebook is trying to...
Yeah, Facebook, of course, denies these charges, as well as the idea that they are simply ripping off Clubhouse social audio infrastructure with their new, as yet unnamed venture. We've been connecting people through audio and video technologies for many years and are always exploring new ways to improve that experience for people, said Emily Haskell, the spokesperson for the company. Sounds fake, but okay. We'll take all the online destruction we can get right now.
Wow. Well, we were just talking about who should...
Talking about,
right? That answers a question.
Right, the Sherman Antitrust Act. Right, the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Wow. We were just, the question that, Professor just presented was who should, be responsible for drawing the line. Well, it looks like the Attorney General of New York is trying to draw a line. Yeah, go ahead, White.
No, I was going to say, and again, I was a history major in college and studied my share of economic history, and I think it's the Sherman Antitrust Act, right? That the purpose of that act was to prevent the kind of monopoly that Facebook is evidently, though not, it hasn't been adjudicated, that they're trying to exercise. And if they have been illegally buying up companies, well, and that can be proven, then here we go.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to indulge me and ask you to elaborate. How do you see this to be an antitrust, and what do we mean by illegally? Because to be illegal means that there's somebody's breaking the law, and to call this antitrust means that they are within the format of. So what is illegal, and how is this being solved?
This is good, Professor. So let me say to everybody, I'm not an attorney. I'm raising this as something to consider. This has not gone to court from what Timmy read. What I'm saying is that we can begin to discuss what Facebook is doing in light of the Sherman Antitrust Act. That's all I'm saying. I would be walking beyond the bounds trying to give legal advice. That said, I can talk about it because the Sherman Antitrust Act exists. Now that's for a court of law to decide. But, Professor, thank you for raising the question.
Well, Professor, back to you, because the Attorney General of New York just literally called it illegal. That's a recent story, February 11th, right?
Yeah, okay. But you see, there is a difference between calling somebody doing an illegal action or presenting charges for an illegal action. So far, a newspaper article is just a commentary until there's a document that says the US government versus Facebook. It is just a commentary.
And
an allegation, right?
Yep. Well, why do you think they put it out there, though? Because they don't, that's not something that, these politicians and lawmakers, they don't just say stuff offhand. You think there's a reason they put it out there? It's a warning, maybe like, hey, we're watching you. What do you think the reason is for putting that out there?
I don't want to put words on somebody else's mouth, especially when it's somebody at that level of power. I don't want to presume that I'm reading minds because lucky us, we cannot read each other's minds. Mm-hmm. But I can say that there is a level of concern. So the question is this a proper concern or not? And what does it mean, concern? The other part of this conversation is investment. When we have a small business, when we have an entrepreneurial venture, we need capital. Capital is fuel. So how do you jump start it? So the question is, how far can companies like Facebook invest in small ventures to get them off the market? And how much is this investment to be considered a takeover of ownership? And again, we are starting to see that this is not as simple as it looks like. We are looking into treasury funds, investment, control mechanisms, ownership, intellectual property. So where do we look for, and what is the entry point on this very interesting conversation?
I think too, we need to talk about the role of government in society. I mean, and what Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, I mean, laissez-faire, right? Mm-hmm, so, as a person of color, if the government didn't intervene, we would still be in chains. So, there is a notion of government intervention. How much, I think, is beyond the scope of an entire conversation. At the same time, I think if the market is left unfettered, then small businesses like ours will not survive if they happen to mirror larger companies like Facebook, or if larger companies like Facebook see these companies like Clubhouse as a threat, and like, hey, we're gonna crush them before they get a chance to live. We're gonna crush them. We got the money, we have the connections. We're gonna snuff them out.
Okay, you're bringing a beautiful conversation that I had some time ago. Literally, if we remove the name of the companies and we turn back the calendar, we're talking about some industries in the energy sector where they were going left to right buying patents to shape the progress and the control of the emerging markets. So can we use the same model if we are going to go for that? Do we need to develop a new model? Furthermore, is the purpose of innovation the enrichment of the innovator person, or is the purpose of innovation the wellness of society? That will mean that innovation may need to have different channels of funding and different purposes to be controlled and regulated.
So for me, I think that the playing field needs to be as level as is possible.
Okay.
To give everyone a chance who wants to innovate, who wants to risk capital, to be able to do that and have a fair chance of succeeding. Okay. Competition notwithstanding.
Okay, so that argument relies on the premise that the purpose of innovation is the wealth of the individual. What if and I'm going to go like radical 500 years into the future. And for this, I apologize because we're talking 2020. So I'm going to be looking further 25, 21. So what if we can create a system where innovation is for the pleasure of innovating and creating betterness, So the competition for richness is no longer the argument, but the creativity and the honor that comes from being the one who makes everybody's life better.
So Professor, I mean, again, it's interesting, Elvin. Yeah, every guest there's a different dynamic. So I think you can argue with my premise, but I don't agree with your position that my premise is only about the richest of the individual. I think it's a false dichotomy. I think that which can benefit the individual can also benefit society. You see what I'm saying? I mean, let's take Facebook. Let's take Facebook out of the current conversation. You know, if it wasn't for Facebook ads and Instagram ads, I wouldn't have a business. So it's benefiting Mark Zuckerberg, his investors, but it's also benefiting me. You see what I'm saying? So it's a both and.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, and I really thank you for bringing this point, because exactly that's what I wanted to get to conversation. I'm trying to follow this exercise of reduction to absurdity to see where do we go with this on these extremes. So if we really think about it, what is the purpose of what we are doing, or what is the purpose of what we want to get done through these mechanisms? So do I want to be able to reach a larger? For example, there was a beautiful exercise, context COVID, that it was done by, I think, was the president of Tonga, who he needed to reach the poorest of the poor to give them the benefit check to help them survive. And we're talking families that will get a $15 check, 1-5, to survive for a month, and that will help them to pay the fertilizer for their crops, the school for all their kids. Like, we're talking like people who really need. He used technology to get there. He used geotags, geomaps, data, social data usage, phone usage. So there is a patent to it, to what he did. This was an open patent. We go to the other side. Right now we have COVID. So there are some economic benefits to those who are developing the vaccines. But if we look back, we notice that there was at some point polio. And some of those vaccines were developed because it was a crisis. And there was the economic benefit to this vaccine was developed not for the economic benefit, but because we needed to get out of here. So how thin is this line? And I agree with you. I like living, and I like living well. So how far can I push my living well? And how much right do I have to say I deserve better? Better than somebody else? Better as in the same as everybody else?
So Elvin, you want to jump in? I mean, this has become a 1-2 conversation. I mean, I'm enjoying it, Professor. I really am. I mean, like I said last week, I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Okay, Timmy, I want you to pull that article I just sent you from the post, and while you're pulling that up and put it on the screen, Chris, I want you to jump in, because Chris is from Cyprus. So I want you to jump in with your view of what it is internationally, because obviously these are American companies, but on your end, internationally and in Cyprus, and of course you had a startup at once as well. If you could jump in and tell us what your thoughts are.
Right. I want to. A lot was said. I like the way there was the parallel with like utility phone companies now. I like the thing that Facebook and Instagram together are a strong marketing tool as well. And what would we have done without it? And I think that for startups and so on in Europe also, we know that most will fail. A huge percentage, most of them will fail, of the startups. So, and maybe part of this is that it's so democratized. Everyone is saying, bring your idea to the table and work on it. It's a great experience because you get many skills. You cannot just be, well, you could be like, for example, economics or the marketing part and so on, but you will watch the others of the team, how they go along. There seems to be like extreme competition when you are doing this thing. And that's what we see. I've got this article here sent from AngelList. Okay. Maybe I'll share my screen if it's possible to see something.
I'll post it. Yeah, bring it up. I'll put it on. Put it on.
Right. Okay. Of course. So we can see a bit, because we talked about Facebook a lot, a bit about Clubhouse, Twitter, maybe not so much. I think Twitter has been struggling for a long time. I think it's the nature of Twitter, because it's sort of text, short text, and so on. So what they're saying is that people will pay for exclusive news, like they will know something before the rest, right? It's a bit scary. So I think they're going to have a hard time. They're going to also try to do, did you mention it, like the review audio tweets and stuff?
So
one last, I think yeah.
No, go ahead, Chris. Finish your thoughts.
And there is competition because the various platforms cannot cooperate. I mean, Zuckerberg did the Facebook, Instagram join, but he didn't do the WhatsApp like merge. Like WhatsApp and Telegram, that are two different rival companies, we should be able to have one of them, choose one, and connect. So they both compete for users at the moment, because they want to have. They cannot have a very small amount of users. They want to have a comfortable lead, because they cannot cooperate between them. And it's so similar things. They are so similar anyway.
So I want to jump in there. Let's deal with Twitter first, right? My thoughts on Twitter. So Jack Dorsey, if you guys have read his bio, he's not really a nice guy, to be honest with you. If there were 3 partners, and he screwed one of them. Him and the other partner screwed the other guy, who I actually heard it was the other guy's idea, right? That's the rumor. And Jack Dorsey bought Snapchat. They bought Snapchat, right? And basically, it was Snapchat. It was another company. No, it was I forgot the name of it. It was where people forgot the name. Anyway, they basically shut it down. It's at the tip of my tongue. Let me just pull it up. Yeah. It's going to come to mind right now. It was Periscope.
Not TikTok.
Periscope. And they basically shut it down. And, the other thing, too, let's talk about Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg, that Facebook was not Zuckerberg's idea. People forget that. That was the two twins' idea. And not only was it his idea, Zuckerberg had a partner. And they made a whole, movie about this, where basically he screwed his partner.
He did.
Out of this company. These are not nice people, And to that point, before you guys jump in, Timmy, I'm gonna release the article if you can read it about what it says there. If you could go read that article a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Silicon Valley feared Facebook's polite tactics years before they came to the attention of regulators. Facebook didn't keep its promises of independence to WhatsApp and Instagram, and used years of anti-cooperative conduct to neutralize rivals, according to legal filings.
Legal filings.
Yeah, keep going. There's some more there.
Facebook executives approaches Ali Partovi, the creator of a popular app that used Facebook's data a decade ago, with a threatening ultimatum: sell your company to us or we will shut you down, according to legal filings. Partovi's app, I Like, had a built-up predecessor to the like button. Oh, that's interesting.
Keep going.
Partovi refused the offer shortly after Facebook discontinued features that I Like relied upon, pushing Partovi to sell his startup to MySpace for a fraction of its previous value. Facebook then built its own like button model after I like. The negotiations, when Facebook was a much smaller player, are early evidence of the hardball tactics to neutralize competition that got the social network to where it is today, a platform that counts more than a third of the world's population as monthly users of its family of apps, which includes WhatsApp messaging and the photo sharing service.
Now, earlier, Professor, you spoke about the like button. I don't know if you knew about this situation, but if you want to expand on that, and
Well, I didn't know about this situation. It's just that we keep repeating history. Literally, it's like every single time we have seen the same. If we are stepping back and, for example, we are talking about why is this company doing that, we notice that there are trends. Is Twitter a company about instant communication, and they are using the different formats, sound, audio, text? Is Facebook a company about networking? They are using about family and friends networking, and they are using the different formats, audio, text, pictures. Then it's part of their métier, their scope. Is LinkedIn a company about networking for business? So what are we asking? Are we asking about what is the scope of the company? So how soon will they have developed this idea on their own? How much will the public will benefit from this? How much do they have the right to incorporate? We are talking as well about economies of scale. So early on we talk about like they are competing for. Right now, I'm looking it into the classroom. We are running and teaching. So you get these messages on my email daily basis. If you are running on Zoom, we offer you this tool. If you are running on WebEx, we offer you this tool. If you are, my phone has about 9 different video communication tools that I use at least half of them on a daily basis. And as a user, that is annoying. There are times that I arrive late to events. So how much is the issue of integration? How much is the issue of the right? How much is an extension of the current scope of the company? So are we going to be talking about the Ragman as the company who is a niche company, or are we talking about the Ragman as a company that has a larger scope within the space of real estate development? So where do we draw the boundaries? Where do innovation, where do control begins?
That's good. So Elvin, it was the Winklevoss brothers, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss.
Yep.
They sued Zuckerberg, and just brief note claiming Facebook founders stole their idea for the social network platform when the trio attended Harvard. They later won a $65 million settlement from the lawsuit, and then I think they are now crypto billionaires. I think they created, because I read their autobiography or the biography. If I'm not mistaken, they created the first crypto exchange, and they've become cryptocurrency. Let me not use colloquial term, cryptocurrency billionaires. So it's interesting, the whole litigation piece and those who fight versus those who don't, and how they do it. And Doctor, I think one of the things that you raised, which I think is interesting, is where is the intellectual property claim, right? What is in the common entrepreneurial sphere regarding media, technology, voice, video, and then what is the unique piece that then can become patentable, which then becomes one's own intellectual property. So I appreciate that insight. I do.
Yeah, and it's right to your point, and that goes to early conversation. Like, if we have this piece of uniqueness, we can identify it, we can write it down, we can protect it. But the question is, how far down? I have this beautiful example that I was running the other day in a discussion. This company, it was called Butler in a Box. We're talking 1988. Article on, I don't know if any of you that are in the tech sector knows about this company, Butler in a Box. 1988, Popular Mechanics, Jim Carson TV show. Person invents this box, goes into your house in the living room. It's voice activated. You can use it to turn on the lights, to turn off the lights, to run your security system, to control the CO2 emitters, and it has an interface to different appliances. Sounds familiar?
Like almost like Siri.
It was 1988. The company only sold 9,000 units because they didn't have the infrastructure to be powerful. Now imagine that that company will have been successful in 1988. Can you imagine what we will be seeing today instead of all these other companies? Now, how far are we lagging behind, or how much can we recognize innovation? The worst part of it is that this entrepreneur did not really make the fortune because he never understood the nature of his innovation. So he was never able to put a boundary. So power to education, power to understand what you are up to.
Yeah. And also too, I tell people in business, sometimes some businesses are ahead of their time. You know, um, I have this argument a lot with realtors. A lot of realtors, they get complacent when they hear, well, Zillow's making certain moves. And we had about, I think it was last week, we had a discussion on the moves Zillow was making. And they don't, Zillow owns 90% of the top of the funnel. So it's the number one search that people go to when they're looking for a house. And now Zillow is now becoming a brokerage, you know, after they took all these agents' money in the marketing, they've become a brokerage, and now they're buying the companies that agents used to use. They're buying Dotloop. They're buying Showing Time, which the agents use. They've bought dozens of companies that agents are using, and they could just flip a switch, shut these companies down, and render these agents useless. If they're getting 90% of the funnel beforehand, and now they're competing with you, and I think that what happens when you see these things, these companies like Facebook and Twitter make these aggressive actions against companies that are now coming up, like Clubhouse. People tend to ignore it because they say, well, those Clubhouse guys are rich. Who cares about them? Right? Until you're the one that gets the idea, or your kid is the one that gets the idea, and this big dominant monster comes in with their money and say, I'm going to bury you. The same thing with Amazon. Look at Amazon. Look how, and let's be real, this is disgusting what they do. You go and 50%, by the way, 50% of Amazon's profit in e-commerce comes from their marketplace, which are people who sell products on the Amazon marketplace. 50% of their revenue, right? It's the most profitable part of the e-commerce platform. The only thing more profitable is AWS, which is their cloud servers, right? Mm-hmm. So what Amazon does is it looks for companies. Because it has all the data. It sees what company has a product that's selling well. So you're a little mom and pops. Hey, let's go manufacture this trinket. The trinket does well. You go from a few hundred sales to millions of sales in a few years. And Amazon sees that, and what they do is they say, oh, because you have to register who your manufacturer is. And they use that to say, oh, well, let's see who the manufacturer is because of safety reasons. Then they go back to the manufacturer. Hey, we're Amazon. We want to produce an Amazon product. I forgot the name, what they call it, Amazon essential product or something. And they basically wipe this small moms and pops company that played by the rules, by their rules, wipe it out of business. And, look, I'm not a big fan of big government, right? Let's be honest. But at some point, the government has to say enough is enough, right? Enough is enough. At some point, they'll probably say enough is enough. And look, I hope those words, they may come back to haunt me at some time if our company blows up. But I can assure you, everything that we've done thus far has been our own innovation, in building smart. So, there has to be some mechanism or something that, some check against these companies because it continually it festers, and to the point now where attorney generals are calling it illegal. But I'll let you guys continue the conversation on that.
Yeah, Elvin, I think I hear what you're saying. I mean, and everybody, because I do media also. I'm looking down for those who will be watching this, because I'm actually taking notes and just preparing some final thoughts. Just to jump in, I think government has to exist across the world, across human history, and there's always the debate from the right and the left, progressive, conservative. What is the role of government? How much government intervention? I think that at the very least, government needs to intervene to the extent to which the small business owner and the startup entrepreneur has a level of a playing field as possible in order to achieve success. I mean, I have some other thoughts at the end, but I want to say that for now in order to kind of piggyback on your thoughts.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback on your piggyback, I will take it a little bit extended, but at the same time back in time. The role of government has been to coordinate resources, to protect the weak, and to ensure the well-being. So when we look to theocratic governments, we think of governments that they have the power because it's God-given. When we look at democratizing governments, they have the power because people has it given it. So different type of governments have different sources of power that allow them to enact and control these purposes. Are we looking, and this is kind of like a seeding a conversation that might be too controversial even to think it, but are we looking at this new conglomerate of technology to become the new government of a new alter identity where we are the virtual citizens? And what we're witnessing is not the fight between the mighty entrepreneur and the powerful giants, or are we looking at a new conversation about what is the space of being, what are the identities, and who has to design what this new reality will become?
That's interesting.
That's good. Hey, this is Doctor. This is and it's funny. I just got off work, so I still have my 9 to 5. I oversee a healthcare startup, but so you come on camera, right? And you're like, okay, let me just offer some lighthearted commentary, and all of a sudden we're dealing with the biggest ideas, the most philosophical concepts, and I thought about Star Wars. I mean, even in media, right? Even in movies, there are these motifs of good versus evil. The Death Star and big versus small and the apocalyptic. For me, I just think, Elvin, you're raising a good point, and even having this topic, I think that at the end of the day, in as much as possible, everyone should have a fair shot to succeed. And I'm a pragmatist, and I said this to my team. I am a pragmatic visionary. So we understand the Facebooks, the Walmarts, et cetera, are going to exist. The thing is, can they dominate and crush competition for their own ends? See, that's I think Elvin, that's really what you're raising by having this conversation.
Yeah.
When it's it's like I box. It's like a lightweight fighting a heavyweight. I don't care how good that lightweight is. The sheer physicality of the heavyweight, unless that lightweight catches a lucky shot, is going to overcome that lightweight every time. That's why in boxing, there are different weight divisions.
So the question is if we continue this conversation in this space of governance and power, for example, can we say that Amazon is not Amazon, the tech company, but Amazon is the Amazon virtual government where Amazon is the country and you need to pay the citizenship right to enter into the Amazon country to be a person who inhabits your business in Amazon? Are you the Facebook government where you are the small technology that you need to pay your citizenship right to inhabit this platform, this ecosystem?
Because Doctor, the thing is that you raised a good point earlier. All of these conglomerates started off as startups.
Yeah.
So the other side of the argument is, are we, and I'll use myself as an example, are we being haters because Mark Zuckerberg became successful. You see what I'm saying? So he started like everyone else. He started at Harvard and college. You know, where did we don't hear a lot about Larry Ellison and Oracle, but you know, how did he start? And Apple started in a garage. So they were all startups at one point. And did they have to navigate the very same waters, if you will, metaphorically speaking, and dynamics that we do? So see, that's another piece that's kind of the devil's advocate position.
Yeah. And if I'm going to go into your extreme, think of it using the same example through the same metaphor. Europe was a bunch of independent countries, now is the European Union. So are we looking at a bunch of different technologies that will become one single technology when they integrate and we have technologies of a scale? Or so I'm all for it, for innovation. I believe that my life is going to be better if somebody's creative. I know that I don't have the capacity to be creative in every single space, nor the time. So how much can I incentivize innovation? How much can I make sure that innovation reach everyone? Like Twitter will be useless if you doesn't have this humongous platform. So how do I let Twitter to be useful as a technology without letting them control the space of the technology?
Now, speaking of that, so Timmy, you know, Timmy has a background, and you can tell him about yourself, mergers and acquisitions. You know, just tell him a little bit about what you did, and then weigh in on what your thoughts are, because the company you did is kind of gobbled up a lot of little companies. So just weigh in
Yeah.
on this situation, and what do you think of Professor and Mike's positions?
Nice. So I did acquisitions before, like acquisition of pharmacies, and we had like a big pharmacy chain called Beno in Serbia, and we bought smaller pharmacy chains and even like individual pharmacies. So that's how we growth, right? So that was our strategy for growing. But there are still some another smaller pharmacy chain that exist, but they are less and less. And they are also like those individuals, just like one pharmacy. And I think like some similar situation with the supermarkets as well. And there are big supermarkets that are chains, but there are still those individual stores that existing and operating, right? So it can be like similar analogy to the apps. So there are like these big platforms, like it is Facebook, it is, so they did the acquisitions with and the merger with Instagram and WhatsApp, right? And but there are also their small apps, like let's say now it is Clubhouse, right? So people still like it, so it doesn't mean that people just only like these bigger companies, these big brands and big names.
So what I'm gonna do now is thanks for that, Timmy, and you know, and what I want to do now is we gotta wrap up because we coming up to 6 o'clock, and you know, I'm gonna let Professor go last to finish us out. Mike, just go away with the final thoughts, and then plug yourself and your company, and then I'll let Professor go after you.
Again, Elvin, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate being on. So just three very brief things. Dr. Sorry, I learned a lot from you today, sir. I appreciate the conversation. The playing field needs to be as level as possible to assist small businesses and startup entrepreneurs. Government intervention to facilitate that fairness. Thirdly, and here's the pragmatic piece, startup entrepreneurs need to be aware of the environment in which they're going to attempt to innovate, be creative, survive, and hopefully succeed. That they're gonna have to interface with the Facebooks, the Instagrams, etc. So I'm Mike Teague, startup entrepreneur. I provide internet entrepreneurs, particularly Gen Zers and millennials, with internet entrepreneur products and services, and particularly information. I can be reached at info@michaeldteague.com. And you can take a look at my website, www.michaeldteague.com. Again, thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks, man. And Professor, final words before you wrap up.
Michael is a hard act to follow. He doesn't take enough credit on his ideas. I only have two closing thoughts on this. One is we need to think on the power, responsibility, and value of innovation and how it's exerted, controlled, and developed. And we need to think on the balance between the need to have economies of scales and providing products and services to every person who needs them, versus how much control do you give to those who need to grow to the size to provide those. And this is as well piggybacking on Timmy's idea on pharmacies. A large chain of pharmacies have cheap products to everybody, but small pharmacies give a lot of work. So how much do I find, where do I find that value? So control, innovation, and balance.
Absolutely. And with those words from Professor, we will be wrapping up. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and watching us. This is Game of Clones. I'm elvinames, aka the Ragman, and we had a great discussion today. And I want to thank Doctor for coming out and Mike for coming out, Timmy and Chris, everybody. And you guys have a wonderful day. And I will see you guys soon. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Timmy. Thanks, Chris.
All right, Professor. See you later. All right, Chris. See you later. Thanks for coming out, guys.